Namaskar, hello and welcome to this very special commemoration from the House of Rethink India. And we are here with you to commemorate the 60 cherished year of doctrine, political doctrine of integral humanism, something to be इंडिक व्यू पंडित दीनदयाल उपाध्याय जी ने 22 से 25 अप्रैल के मुंबई में चार लेक्चर्स के माध्यम से अपनी है जो राजनीतिक दर्शन जिसका नाम पड़ा समग्र मानवतावाद, विच वी कॉल इट एज इंटीग्रल ह्यूमैन, उसका प्रतिपादन किया था। आज 6 दशक के पश्चात ह्यूमैनिज्म आज द ह्यूमन स्टैंडिंग इट and just after almost 3 months of press विटनेसिंग, तो पंडित जी का यह जो दर्शन है आज भी बहुत ही प्रतीत होता है। तो उसी हिस्टोरिक ओकेजन को कमेमोरेट करते हुए 22 से 25 अप्रैल इंटीग्रल इंडिक इंटेलिजेंस फोरम 2025 का आयोजन कर पंडित जी ने इस जीवन दर्शन में की है, इस राजनीतिक दर्शन में कि भारत का जो चिंतन है वह धर्म अर्थ काम मोक्ष इन चतुः बीच में we would be having a battery of galaxy of speakers in the following day. आज क्योंकि पहला दिन है इस पूरे सत्र का, और किसी भी महती मनीषी का जो है वह जो लेक्चर्स उन्होंने वहां दिए, सो टुडे what Pandit ji delivered in terms of 21 slides. We would be just presenting it across to you. जो जो उसका पूरा विवेचन है उसका उस रूप से उसको आत्मसात, think that is something which is so very critical in today's time. And full five was independent only for 17 odd years, and so let's with that. Mittal, I'm the Dubhi who is the president out here. So Dr. Some session and some four lectures should become the essential politics of the entire youngsters all across, and we would be offering a kind of a certification program based on these historic lectures. And कोई नाम नहीं पंडित जी ने दिया, एक भारतीय विधा में बड़े संक्षिप्त रूप से आप देखेंगे कि किस स्लाइड्स में गागर में सागर भरा है पंडित जी ने, और कोई नाम नहीं दिया। बहुत ही सोच विचार के नहीं, एक राजनीतिक संगठनकर्ता के रूप में, और इतना उनका जो busy schedule is, as we can say, so a single man army at those early points. So so if we just go over here, so पूरे दर्शन को जो कहा कि एज पर पंडित दीनदयाल उपाध्याय जी, द प्राइमरी कंसर्न इन इंडिया should be to develop an indigenous developmental model that has human beings as its core focus. तो वही मानवतावाद की बात आई कि मनुष्य शुड बी एट द सेंटर ऑफ इट ऑल, and it is opposed to both Western capitalist individual and Marxist socialism, though it welcomes Western science. And it seeks this entire darshan, it seeks a middle ground between capitalism and socialism, evaluating both systems on their respective merits while being critical of their excesses and alienness. एंड वी कुड गैदर कि इस प्रथम जो लेक्चर है जिसका हम आज वाचन करेंगे लगभग 60 मिनट्स में, विल ट्राई टू रैप इट अप बिकॉज इट इज इंटीग्रल ह्यूमनिज्म एट 60 वी कॉल so but what would be the face of the new Bharat after independence? That's a question what Deen Dayal ji poses 60 years back on this very day of 22nd of April in Mumbai. And then he says, in which direction were we to advance? So moving forward, I would like to give the opportunity to Dr. Surbhi to do the vachan of this first slide. We will try to make it a, mixed doubles kind of a presentation to all of you. So Dr. Surbhi, over to you.
My deepest pranams to our distinguished audience. And this is a very divine and a precious moment, I would say, in the yoke of history. I think when Rethink India is recording its live lectures on the integral humanism, I should say the didactic mode of lecture is here with the Vakta or Shrota. आप सभी हैं. And I feel that ekatma manavta is the heart of political the fervor which the country needs and has ever needed and would need in the future. So beginning my vachan as Raghav ji has asked me to do, I would just say, so long as the country was under the yoke of the British rule, all
We'll
the
start from
movement.
here, Dr. Yeah, from here, then this way. Yeah.
But what would be the face of the new Bharat after independence? In which direction were we to advance? I'm asked to present my thoughts on the subject of integral humanism in a series of talks beginning this evening. Last January, at Vijayawada, Bharatiya Janasangh adopted the statement of principles and policies in which integral humanism has also been accepted. Also, there have been scattered discussions here and there on the subject. It is necessary that we consider integral humanism in all its aspects. It would not be correct to say that no thought was devoted to these aspects. There were people who, even at that time, had considered these questions. Gandhiji himself had set out his idea of the independent Bharat in his book Hind Swaraj. Prior to this, Lokmanya Tilak discussed the philosophical basis of the rejuvenation of Bharat in his book Gita Rahasya. He gave a comparative discussion of various schools of thought current all over the world at that time. So
Deen
long
Dayal
as the
also
country
asked a very pertinent question. He asked that so long as the country was cool, movements and policies in the country had one principle, which was the aim to drive out the foreign rulers and to achieve independence. But what would be the face of the new Bharat after independence? That Deen Dayal ji asked. Uh, that galaxy out there, and these questions were sequence of the slide is like this is the first introduction, then the left column putting it across. And as a part of this, what we feel is भारतवर्ष में व्यक्तिगत बौद्धिक प्रसार और प्रचार करने का परंपरा नहीं रही है। हमारे यहाँ जितने पुट फोर्थ की भाई यह ज्ञान, यह जो उद्धृत ज्ञान है, यह परंपरा से हमें प्राप्त है। इवन ऑन गॉन ट्रेडिशन in this huge vistas of our contemporary political thinking and the collective aspiration of our Amrit Bharat by definition would be somewhere helped by these readings out there. Over to Dr. Surbi all over again in her melodious voice. Let she philosophy of Pandit ji out there, Dr. Surbi.
Now that we independent, what shall be the direction of our progress? Apart from these, the Congress and other political parties adopted various resolutions from time to time which contain references to this subject. However, the subject requires much more serious study than was devoted to it at that time. It did not attract serious attention at that time because everyone believed it was more important to think of ways to drive out the British, and the other things could be discussed later on. Having attained independence, the
So,
question naturally ought to have occurred to us.
Dr. while the foreign rule continued. Hence, even if there might have difference in views, they were shelved for the time being. As a result, even those who held the view that socialism should be the basis of the future Bharat, socialism, they did it for revolutionaries to were working independent in their own way. All were agreed, however, that the foremost task was to gain independence. Now, moving on, naturally to have occurred to us now that we, uh, what shall be the direction of our progress? But is to this and today, even years independence, we cannot say that a definitive direction has been decided. So
Upon
whether translates to wither India, it's a term used to express the future direction of India, often in a critical or the phrase invites consideration of India's its challenges and potential paths forward. So this is the next lecture is with. Over to Dr. Surbhi.
however, naturally, I asked, what program shall we
Dr.
adopt?
Surbhi, please. From time to time, Congress or others have declared welfare state, socialism and liberalism, etc. Slogans
But we
attached little
acknowledged
significance to the philosophy apart from the slogans. I am saying basis of personal discussions. Deen Dayal ji says once that a chant should be for against Congress. I a fight can place political part of this strategy. So it was surprising to heard the we adopt. If such a joint front is formed, such program our economic policy? What will be our foreign policy? These questions should also be broadly tackled. So do not, you like, you can adopt. We are ready to support anything from extreme Marxist right capitalist program. The reply as a so Dindayalji says that the person whom he with no difficulty in adopting any program. The only object was uh, that Congress should. Even now, some declare that Congress must be even with the cooperation of communists and all the. So recently, it was during the election, Swatantra Party, SSP Rebel Congress, known as Revolutionary Party, etc. They all entered into a variety of bilateral or as a result, these parties had a definitive ideology, principles, and aims. So, this is the situation as principles are concerned. Congress too allegiance in it. So, backdrop 70, 70 that and the democratic socialism as its goal. This Congress leaders shows one thing clearly, that there are no definitive, no in that was a time of early crisis in the political party which was at the forefront of there. Launch community all brands of people are arrayed on Congress. There and a mongoose living together. The ideologies, it is so we can we stop for the problems facing the country. We will find that the confusion about our goal and responsible for this chaos. So moving to of this slide. Yeah.
As a result, it was difficult to imagine that any of these parties had a definite ideology, principles,
So
and
this
aims.
Dr. Surya,
So I'm reading from There Are Staunch Communists in Congress Fold. I just
so
lost a
that
bit
slide
of.
has been moved on. So please, you are lost. So Dindayalji says that I realized of India was around 450. Even is not possible in any country. But then he asks a very elaborate question. Yet there is generally what is the common desire of the people of any nation. The basis of our aim. The common man feels that the nation is moving in a position and that his own aspiration is reflected in the effort. This also generates the greatest invasion of October, November 1962. It was just 3 years give and take. Uh, Action and sacrifice both obtained in abundance. So, barrier between government the public or between various political parties. How did this happen? The external threat made us recognize ourselves. The government policy, which reflected the widespread feeling in the people and which enhanced their sense of self respect, all rise. And that was united. So, this is the common desire of the people, which was attained as a part of an external aggression. And this is why in the sense that a popular longing has founded. The part is the neglect of self. So, it is that we think about our national identity. Without this identity, there is no meaning of independence and happiness. As long as we are unaware of national, we cannot recognize, develop all our potentialities. In rule, this identity remains suppressed. This is an accepted, he says. That is why, and this is the reason for all political movements of self determination, that this may that they express according to their natural bent and can experience happiness in this endeavor. Nature is powerful. An attempt to go against nature or to disregard her leads to trouble. जो बात है जो and in front of you. The psycho analysis of a human and which is applicable for nations as well. Nature is powerful. An attempt to go against or to disregard her leads to troubles. The natural cannot be disregarded, but it is possible to elevate to the culture. National nature, Ji makes a very pertinent point out here. And perhaps being a medico with us, the root cause of our problems, neglect of so
There is a slight lag in the net bandwidth. Therefore, I feel that I'm not able to be in sync with the presentation. So I would request, am I audible?
yeah, yeah, you are audible. Are you not
Yeah, now I'm on
watching
the same page.
in
Actually, yeah, there was a lag in the bandwidth now,
fair?
the speed of the internet. So that's why I lost on a that. Okay. So the root of our problems, neglect of self. Now, psychology informs us how by suppression of various natural instincts, different mental disorders ensue. Such a person remains restless and dejected. His abilities slowly deteriorate and become perverted. The nation, too, like the individual, becomes a prey to numerous ills when its natural instincts are disregarded. The basic cause of the problems facing Bharat is the neglect of its national identity.
So in a very, very scientific fashion, Deen Dayal ji has established that what remains, and somewhere or the other, this has been going on to a great extent as well. We are in the process of self discovery of our national identity. But then this is what our lecture. Well, for any layman person who has interest in of the political affiliation for that matter, because politics is all about the principles underlying that what on what frontiers, on what foundations, what kind of programs we should have over there. So opportunism now he now comes further Elias is is a young Turk of the Bharatiya Jansang of that point in time. But then what he said that opportunism has shaken the concepts uh, uh, is as well as take active interest in the affairs of the country. It started happening soon after for seven uh, which of the British Empire. So frequently opportunists with no principles reign in country, neither nor isms, nor a standard of conduct. A person feels nothing wrong in leaving one party and joining another. Even years of parties or nations are dictated not by agreement or by differences in positions of power. He gives uh, part of his Hafiz Muhammad League ticket. Later, when he joined Congress, with healthy principles of public conduct, he resigned and sought re-election on Congress ticket, once again elected. Now, in 19, when socialists, although resigned and elections on socialist tickets, so a political party fought an election principal grounds, they resigned and then they sought from the electorate. That was the kind of a morality which used to exist. But there, healthy tension was, now there is a, as a result in public mind, there is this for beyond uh, this is the unity and discipline cannot be arrived. That's what he expresses concerns, and even in the contemporary politics, we are seeing how kind of a narrative has gone, and that's why the ideology is still of a bipartisan custodian of the conscience of the Indian political scenario. What should be our direction? That is what Deen Dayalji asks. The nation is at crossroads. Some people suggest start from where we have left off 1,000 years ago, when foreign in Dr. Said,
What should be our direction? The nation is at crossroads. Some
this
people suggest, besides, it would not be rational to say that the 1,000-year-old alien rule has interrupted the current of our national life so completely that from that time to this day we remained stationary and inactive.
at station on virility happened out there. So it's not that even if the foreign sub circumstances to meet the challenges thrown at her. We have struggled to continue our life forward and to rest from the national life was not interrupted, gone ceaselessly. So we were not stationary or in a house millennia of this background. What should be our direction? And then he moves on. He says, of turning the waters of Ganga back to some point at Banaras may not be crystal clear as at Haridwar, but still it this
It has absorbed.
so yeah, Dr. Surbi, please go on. Yeah.
It has absorbed numerous rivulets with all their refuse. However, these have no separate existence but have become Ganga. The current Ganga must must inevitably glow onwards. If this was all that happened, it would still not be a big problem. But there are other nations in the world. They have made phenomenal progress in the past 1000 years. Our entire attention was engaged in fighting for independence or staving off new hordes of invaders. We have not been able to contribute to the world progress. Now, when we are free, it is it not paramount that we fill this deficiency at the earliest and stand shoulder to shoulder with other advanced nations of the world?
Kind of a, I would say, a natural restlessness that India still has on structures were all ravaged in these 1,000 years. That's what uh, across the political ideological segments. The difficulty arises when we fail to discern the reasons of the secular advance of the West, its effects, real comparative forward, some yeah, I think there was a slight break, some interruption again. Yeah. So this point, there is no room for difference of opinion. The difficulty arises when we fail to discern. So, and apparent. And this is further complicated by the fact that British representative of the West are really at uh, whereby in the minds of our people, this is the core. We would say that the diagnosis what Deen Dayal ji posits, and this is the prognosis of all the national ailments which we are to the current. That they who ruled this country century, and during this period they adopted such measures whereby in the minds of our things Bharatiya and respect for everything Western were subtly created. It's a two-way process what the Britishers did that so along with the scientific advancement, their way of life all came to this country. We see a lot of bakeries all around despite having such a very flat kind of Western mannerisms are superior to our own ways and means of devouring food, which is so very healthy based on the Ayurvedic aspect of the Britishers. But then he says that this is happening across in a big way. And today, the educated in this country, this if while they ruled us, but is strangely enough to the progress of the nation. So Deen Dayal ji is also very wary that a narrow uh, can't see on the screen.
I'm there.
You're over there, no?
Yeah, the net is still wavering actually. The net speed is still wavering, fluctuating rather. Am I visible?
Going forward, then what should be our direction? However, Western science and Western are two different things. Whereas Western science is universal and must be absorbed by us, we wish forward. The same is not true about the Western way of life and values. So Deen Dayal ji makes a distinction between the Western science, which is obviously the material science, which is universal. But he says that the Western way of life and values, it has to be contrasted with the Western science for that matter. And this makes and to be scrupulously discarded. There are those who consider economic and political doctrines of the West as epitomes of progress and desire to transplant the same in our country. And in some way or the other, we still feel that to decide our country and how we must also take into consideration the basic economic and political doctrines of the West and their present position. So Deen Dayal ji is now unraveling it. He gives a kind of a prescription, and then what is exactly what limited in the international context as a global citizen. And that's where he says that when we are trying to decide also to consider the basis of our various economic and political West and their present position. And when he the year is 1965, that reality is still contemporary. So, Dr. Surbi, if you would like to do the in
Um, okay. The rise of European nations. Among various isms that affected the West, the principal ones are nationalism, democracy, and socialism. At the same time, there have been some who cherish world unity and world peace and have made some efforts in that direction. Among these, nationalism is the oldest and the strongest. After the fall of the Roman Empire and decline in the influence of the Catholic Church, the Europe witnessed rise of several nations. History of Europe in the past 1000 years, 1000 years, is the history of the rise of and conflict among various nations. These nations extended their empires beyond the European continent and subjugate other independent countries. Nationalism.
nutshell, he has the word history and said that the Eurocentric history, the conflict between the European nations, world turmoil, the which there. So Deen Dayal ji says that nationalism brought nation and state resulting in state. So the gave rise either to national churches or to complete disappearance of religious influence on politics. Rose out of this situation. So religion took a backseat and secular republics started taking shape. Deen Dayal ji then moves on to talk about the uh, uh, Europe, and he says that a revolutionary concept which made a deep life of Europe is democracy. In the beginning, it came, but awakening in the minds of the Industrial Revolution and the international result rise of nations. There ensued a conflict between the established and feudal. It's difficult. You would be showing the class, the same feudals and the same people, they started controlling lives of the and this small nutshell in a small lecture, he is given that dollars to almost history. In origin of democracy was sought in the Greek city republics by the of equality, fraternity, liberty of every citizen. France witnessed revolution, the French Revolution. In England too, there was a move. or their powers were drastically curbed, and constitutional governments were established all across. And today, democracy has been already accepted in Europe. Those who practice democracy the dictatorship of the sovereign state, they too face that individual was still exploited. Everything was going well in the democratic setup, but real power stayed with who had led the revolution. A new class, a new privileged class emerged out of it. Industrial revolution had generated faith in the new methods of production. That was a technocratic development. And instead of working in the freedom of home, workers now started working in factories under orders from where? From the factory owners. The worker migrated from his hometown to well-equipped cities, and there was no provision of proper housing or high-tech schools in the cities. So once again, individual was exploited even more critically in the industrial age. The worker was economically weak, he became a victim of exploitation, injustice, and harassment. Those whose political power was vested, they were members of the same group who exploited the workers. Hence, there was no hope of redressal from the state, because the state comprised of those very people, the state, the political power, who were members of the group who exploited the workers. So the capitalists, somewhere, they were the owners of the political power as well. So Dindayalji gives a further context to it that a number of persons led movements in protest against this injustice with a desire to improve the lot of workers. They called themselves socialists, and Karl Marx was one of them. In an effort to lead the movement against injustice, Marx studied the entire history and structure, presented his analysis of the situation, and he claimed to have given a scientific basis to his theory, to his set of theories, and all the subsequent might not have agreed with Marx, but they all influenced uh, by his ideas. Finally, what happened? The exploitation of the individual happened. Uh, and then, when the socialist movement started, Dindayalji says, he then sums up his lecture one of integral humanism: the dictatorship of the proletariat, the workers, proletariats. So, according to the Marxian analysis, which is dialectic materialism, the root cause of exploitation, it lies in the private owners of the means of production. So if these means are made the property of the society, this is what Marx posited. uh, for the Marxist, the society is synonymous with the state. भारत में ऐसा नहीं है, but this is what the Marxist views calls about it. So Marx said that if the means of the production are made the property of the society, then there will be no further exploitation. And by society, Marx meant state. But before this, the state should be redeemed from the hands of the exploiters and ensured against their influence in future, the dictatorship of the proletariat. So to end, dictatorship of the proletariat must be established. This was the core requirement, what Marxist utopia presented to the workers at large, the kind of an ideal revolution he propounded. So, in order that people tolerate this dictatorship, it was held as an ideal that when the exploited class has been finally liquidated, and possibly of its resurgence existed, this society remained vast and a to create. Marx wanted that capital own, and that socialism is inevitable. So this is Marx uh, Upadhyay ji, and he continues this very segment dictatorship, proletariat. In some countries of Europe, there was social revolution, and even where socialism was not accepted, politicians had to accept the rights of workers, and welfare state was actually accepted as an ideal. So nationalism, democracy, uh, and equality, we call it. This is what Deen Dayal ji explains. And these three doctrines, nationalism, democracy, so of word, peace and word unity also cropped up from the all ideas. This higher aspect of themselves by itself. Each of these doctrines is India. Is explaining it for that. Each ism, democracy, and socialism threat to world peace, democracy, and join hands to give a free rein exploitation. And socialism replaced and brought it and freedom. So present is with the task of reconciling ideas. Individual ideas propped up, and West is still trying to reconcile these ideas at the height of, for that matter, long before 1990s when uh, the cap look forward and we are again uh, from 3 post that. So they have not succeeded to this filing uh, identified combinations by says one the so the focus is to understand what integral humanity would talk his in he is on the short the, he gave the top level of prescription that everything was uh, everything western was pushed something superior. England emphasized nationalism and democracy and developed her politico-social instincts could not in 5 but people have raised doubts whether democracy survive. Labour Party no longer supports socialism so strongly as the Marxist doctrines advocate. So, if socialism has been diluted considerably, Hitler and nationalist come socialism and they buried democracy. In the socialism for their nationalism, which posed a great threat to peace. Finally, Deen Dayal ji says that we may indeed seek some guidance from the West. The fact is, it has no concrete crossroads, unable to decide such circumstances. Not expect all the ideologies they are trying, all permutations and combinations, still with a On the contrary, we must consider whether present and when we are reading it 60 years before, it is still as if is heavenly abode. He is still asking that we must consider whether in this present state of the world we we mean something having taken note of the progress of the word, can we add knowledge? Can we add to the story and the word must discharge our responsibilities? There's something that may prove helpful progress. We should not hesitate in improving the word. In this of adulterating ideas, we must on scrutinize and improve upon them whenever possible before accepting them. So, as a part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat, the Atmanirbhar Bharatiya Vichar, what the propounded six is again a is a kind of a recipe for the global VUCA, the volatility and this is quite very much out there. And if you see all across, we have tried this will be 2, 3, and 4. Deen Dayalji will be explaining it further. So he, rather than being a burden on the word, we must attempt to resolve, if possible, the problems. The Mahakumbh, one of the largest congregations of humanity on the banks of at so influence of global knowledge. I think we have some, and out of all Indian scholars, I think no one surpasses than the other about the entire aspects and in the concise short lectures which we'll be devouring in consequent 4 days that we contribution, our tradition, and civilization to the word culture. And we shall consider this tomorrow evening in lecture 2, which was given originally 3rd of April 1965. To see that Deen Dayalji has not said that we have to return past. He talks about civilization. We're not even uh, we did not remain stationary or inactive. The current life was but has gone on ceaselessly. We have withstood uh, onslaughts were brought to our nation, and we is what made of like a cloth, so that weaving can be taken up after a gap in time. So, just a few that as a part of these lectures, we are trying to all kind of program. So, for video summarization, what are you coming from this lecture one of integral humanity?
So, am I audible?
Yeah,
So, um, I would say that Panditji has, you know, in सार गर्भिता जिसे कहते हैं, he has said that national consciousness is like the river Ganges, which never stops. It collects all its rivulets and then forms, reforms, transforms again into the Ganges, the Ganga. So our national efforts have always been there, incessantly. If our freedom fighters were struggling to grant our republic the status we are today, it was a huge struggle. And if we had to contribute to the world global platform, we are ready now. This is what I would say. And taking the
So
tenet,
we would,
just let me complete. Take last statement. Taking the
because he has
tenets,
given a background.
taking the tenets of socialism, equality, as opposed to the capitalism, we are primarily a socialist economy. We've always
No, no, Dr.
been.
Subi, let's not complicate it out. No, please, please, Dr. Subi, please don't complicate that. What Deen Dayal to
That might be my
number
personal
of poor,
opinion.
just
I
given.
see.
Yeah, yeah, please, please, please.
Like,
It's quite intricate when it comes to the policies and politics of the Western world. Tomorrow, we lecture to in commemoration 60. Hope that this rendition would be coming handy uh, to all those who are really ardent students of this path breaking philosophy. This is again, we will say again, I will come back to the slide one that as per Pandit learn in India, it should be to develop an indigenous uh, that has human beings more focus, opposed to both Western capitalist individualism, Marxist socialism. So it's a kind of a middle path what Deen Dayal ji has woven, and the this is the uh, seeks in capitalism, socialism of their excesses and alienness. So with this, we conclude this lecture one rendition as a part of the Integral Indic Intelligence Forum, which that the Chatu Dharma, Arth, Kam, and Moksha, how they are intertwined. The very many expressions, the desire to be anchored in dharma, and their eventual aspiration has to be moksha. And for these kamanas, these desires, the entire arthanusandhan, the entire human endeavor, the international has to be furthered over there. We conclude this session. Thank you very much for listening. Namaskar. We will be back with lecture two tomorrow on April 20. Are commemorating the integral humanism at 60. Hope that this very doctrine it really takes because it creates kind of a balance uh, this elaborately out. So namaskar.